Welcome to our guide on crafting the EB-2 National Interest Waiver petition. If you're a professional with an advanced degree or some truly exceptional skills, this is a pathway to a U.S. green card that you absolutely need to understand. So, for a lot of skilled folks, getting a green card is this long, drawn-out process that's tied to a specific job offer and something called a labor certification. But there's this really powerful alternative, the National Interest Waiver, or NIW. It lets you petition for yourself, no job offer needed, by making the case that your work is just that important to the United States. All right, so how do you actually build a winning NIW case? Here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about the huge advantage the NIW gives you. Then, we'll get into the basic eligibility, the stuff you have to have. After that, we are diving deep into the critical three-part Nasser test. This is the real soul of your petition. We'll also cover the kind of evidence you need to gather. And finally, we'll talk about how to dodge those common roadblocks that can trip people up. So, first things first, let's really get why the National Interest Waiver is such a big deal. It all comes down to skipping one of the single biggest hurdles in employment-based immigration. You see, the standard way to do this involves a super complex process called perm labor certification. The whole point of it is to prove to the Department of Labor that there are no qualified U.S. workers who could do your job. It can take a year, sometimes more, it costs a lot, and it basically ties you to one employer. The NIW, it lets you sidestep that entire headache. Now, here's something that's really key. Before you can even start arguing that your work is in the national interest, you first have to prove you qualify for the basic EB-2 visa category itself. Think of it as the foundational requirement. You absolutely have to clear this hurdle first. USCIS basically gives you two main doors to walk through to meet this requirement. You either need to show you have an advanced degree, or you need to prove you have what they call exceptional ability in your field. Okay, so the first path is pretty straightforward. It's all about your academic credentials. This means you have a U.S. master's degree or PhD or the foreign equivalent. Or, hey, if you have a U.S. bachelor's degree, you can still qualify by showing you've got at least 5 years of progressive, hands-on work experience in your field after you got that degree. The second path is for people who might not have that advanced degree, but man, they can show a level of skill that's just, well, not normal in their field. The key phrase to remember is significantly above that ordinarily encountered. You're not just trying to prove you're good at your job, you have to prove you are truly exceptional. So how in the world do you prove you're exceptional? Well, USCIS gives you a menu of options to choose from. Your goal is to provide solid evidence for at least 3 of these 6 criteria. Now, the technique here isn't just to find the 3 easiest ones. No, it's about picking the 3 that tell the most powerful story about your expertise, whether that's through letters detailing a decade of experience, proof of a really high salary, or awards showing that your peers think you're a big deal. But here's the kicker, and this is so important. Just checking 3 boxes isn't enough to get you across the finish line. The USCIS officer does what's called a final merits determination. They look at all of your evidence together to see if it really, truly convinces them you're a cut above the rest. And that idea leads us right into the real heart of the NIW petition. Okay, so once you've proven you meet the basic EB-2 requirements, it's time for the main event, proving your work is in the national interest. And to do that, you have to pass something called the Nasser test. This is the modern framework that every single NIW case is judged against. This test came out of a landmark 2016 case, Matter of Nasser, and it totally changed the game. What it does is take this kind of vague idea of national interest and breaks it down into 3 distinct logical parts, or prongs, that your petition has to satisfy. First up, prong 1. You've got to show that what you want to do here in the U.S., your proposed endeavor, has both substantial merit and national importance. Substantial merit just means it's valuable. Think business, science, art. National importance means its impact goes beyond just one town or one company. It has the potential to affect the U.S. on a much broader scale. Second, the spotlight turns directly on you. It's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You have to prove, through your education, your skills, your past wins, and a solid plan, that you are uniquely well-positioned to make this thing happen. They'll be looking for things like a track record of success, patents, or maybe even interest from investors. And finally, we get to the third prong. This is where you argue that the benefit of what you bring to the table is so big that it's better for the U.S. to just skip the whole labor certification process. You're basically saying, Look, the value or urgency of my work is so great, it benefits the US to have me, specifically, get started on this right away. Now, passing this three-pronged test isn't about just saying you'll do these things. It's about building an ironclad case with concrete, persuasive evidence that tells a really compelling story about why you matter to the US. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence you can have is what other experts are saying about you and your work. But, and this is a big but, choosing who writes your recommendation letters is a major strategic decision. Yeah, this is where the real strategy kicks in. A letter from your boss? That's fine. But a letter from an independent expert? Somebody who knows your work by its reputation alone? That carries way more weight with USCIS because it's objective proof of your influence. And hey, if you can get letters from experts at places like NASA or other big-name government agencies, that's pure gold. Now, what if you're an entrepreneur? It's a growing group of people applying for NIWs, and for them, the evidence might look a little different. But the principle is exactly the same. Prove you can succeed and make a national impact. If you're starting a business, USCIS needs to see the real deal. They want tangible proof that your venture is not just a dream. We're talking a detailed business plan with financial projections, proof you've secured funding from venture capitalists, or that you've been accepted into a startup incubator. Things like patents or copyrights you've developed are also incredibly powerful signs that you are well-positioned for success. Okay, let's wrap this up with a final piece of the puzzle, how to proactively avoid the common things that cause petitions to get delayed with a request for evidence, an RFE, or even denied. Honestly, the best defense is a good offense here. To build a bulletproof petition, you have to start thinking like the officer who's going to be reading it. For example, look at your reference letters. Are they kind of generic, or do they give specific, concrete examples of your impact? What about your business plan? Does it just say you'll create jobs, or does it show it with real market analysis? The best technique is to show, not just tell. Providing things like a business registration or letters of intent from potential clients proves that your plan is already in motion. So, at the end of the day, here's what it all comes down to. Your I-140 NIW petition is so much more than a stack of forms. It is a complete story. A narrative that you are crafting to argue for your unique ability to contribute to the United States. And every single piece of evidence has to support that one central story. And that brings us to the final, most important question that you really have to ask yourself as you put your case together. What is the national importance of my story, and how am I going to prove it? Your ability to answer that question clearly, persuasively, and with a mountain of evidence to back it up, that is the ultimate key to a successful national interest waiver petition.